a makeover, a comprehensive reforms, and India.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching NewsX World's Africa Brief. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Fighting erupts in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo a day after the country's leader signed a peace deal brokered by US President Donald Trump, prompting hundreds to flee across the border into Rwanda. Rwanda has this week alone received over 754 Congolese refugees fleeing intense fighting, and the Democratic Republic of Congo government has forces in South Kivu province. The new arrivals, mostly women and children, are crossing into Rwanda through Bugarama and border post of Ruziski district. The United States and Rwanda have signed a deal for the provision of $228 million for the health sector in the East African nation. This is the second such pact under the Trump administration's new approach to overseas aid. Kenya authorities release a report from a parliamentary inquiry accusing the British Army's training unit in the country, BATUK, of serious man rights violations, environmental damage, and misconduct spanning decades. A witness in a high-profile inquiry into crime and corruption in South Africa's justice system was gunned down just weeks after implicating a municipal police chief. Amnesty urges Burkina Junta not to reinstate the death penalty. Amnesty's director of a region has said that the military must immediately halt its plans regardless of the nature of the offences or crimes committed. FIFA awards President Donald Trump with the Peace Prize at the 2026 World Cup draw, giving the spectacle to set matchups for the quadrennial soccer tournament even more of a Trumpian flair. Trump welcomes U.S. vaccine advisors scrapping a long-standing recommendation that all American newborns receive the hepatitis B shot and signed a memo to renew aligning child immunization recommendations. And the viewers, let's start with the top development here for Africa Brief. Now, fresh fighting has erupted in Democratic Republic of Congo, and it has forced hundreds of civilians to flee across the border into Rwanda. And this is just a day after a peace deal was signed in Washington. Fighters from the anti-government group M23 clashed with Congolese forces in South Kivu province, backed by thousands of Burundian troops. Now, the battle centers on the strategic border town of Kamanyola, currently controlled by M23. Residents on both sides of the border reported intense shelling, with schools, hospitals and homes hit. Civilians took refuge indoors or fled into the hills as detonations shook buildings, while Rwandan authorities monitored those crossing the border. The renewed violence highlights the fragility of Thursday's agreement intended to stabilize the resource-rich East after decades of conflict. With M23 previously capturing major cities into the region, there are growing fears that the clashes could escalate further and draw in neighboring forces as well. And Satoru Nagao, who is a fellow at the Hudson Institute, now joins us live from Tokyo. Mr. Nagao, this is another threat to another historic peace deal by Trump.
Yes, the peace deal arranged by Trump, this is indeed a big achievement in this case. But at the same time, the peace deal is not easy, especially just after it had started. Because for a long time they fight each other, they hate each other. In this case, it is not easy to stop their emotion. And at the same time, confirming the ceasefire is needed because they stopped firing. Is this a real ceasefire or just a time to reorganize their forces to restart attack, but it is not easy to distinguish. So that's why the view from this situation just after the ceasefire started, uh, it is not easy to maintain the ceasefire itself. So that is maybe current situation, I think, because just one day after the agreement. But at the same time, the one more thing is a little bit complicated thing because this battle in the Congo is escalating to be the more multinational battle because M23 supported by Rwanda and now Congolese army is supported by Burundi. So this means this is quite international. So ceasefire agreement has happened between Congo and Rwanda. This means that Congo and Rwanda means that Congo's army and M23's support of the M23 is included in ceasefire. But in case of the Burundi, Burundi is a newcomer. So that's why is this ceasefire, including all of the actors in this conflict, is another topic in this case. Thank you.
Do we now expect mediation from the US once again?
Pardon?
Should we expect Trump and the United States to mediate once again, given that the ceasefire was established only a day prior to the fresh fighting?
Yeah, repeatedly intervention, repeatedly pressure is needed because without President Trump's intervention, that conflict hasn't stopped. So that's why if the ceasefire started, this is not the end of the ceasefire negotiation. This is the starting point to maintain the ceasefire. So that's why the maintaining intervention or continuing to making pressure to maintain the ceasefire. But this kind of the effort is needed from the U.S. Administration side. So that's why without the U.S. pressure, which is very strong, far stronger than these countries in the conflict, so that is very important to maintain ceasefire, I think.
All right, do stay on with us, Mr. Naga. We have some more developments coming in this regards. Viewers, let's tell you that refugees from the Democratic Republic of Congo have begun to cross into Rwanda at Bugarama as the fleeing fresh fighting near Kamanyola were held by M23 rebels. According to the authorities, bombs were exploding over the houses, children were dying and people were losing their lives after the peace agreement aimed at halting the conflict was signed in Washington. Meanwhile, some refugees have responded. Let's listen into what they had to say.
Mabomu ilikuwa inaanguka yule ya manyumba. Mabomu ilikuwa inaanguka yule ya manyumba, watoto wanakufa, baba wanakufa, wamama wanakufa. Tunaona sha hatutaweza kubingoya. Walikuwa tuambia tujifungie manyumba, tunaona hatutajifungia manyumba, tutaweza.
Wana tofauti. Sisi wetu tunasikia oga, tena na wengine wanasikia oga, wengine wana roho kiume kabisa. Ndio maana unaona watu wanashengelea hicho hivyo. Lakini sio kila mtu. Mwanamke wanasikiaga oga, watoto wanasikiaga oga, wanakimbilia kwa nyumba. Lakini tunaomba Mungu tu asaidie na wajirani wetu. Tunasikia ni shida sana.
Maintenant, pour le moment, nous sommes en train de compter plus de 10 morts. Il a largué des bombes aux écoles, aux hôpitaux, et aux habitations civiles. Il y a 10 morts. Il y a au moins plus de 10 000 ménages maintenant déplacés internes. Ils sont dans des brousses, dans des caniveaux. Et les autres, au moins plus de 500 familles qui se sont réfugiées pour le moment et dans le pays voisin, dans la commune voisine de Bugaram.
All right, I'd now request a comment from Mr. Naga once again on this situation. Explosions are also reported in Bugarama, Mr. Naga, after this.
Okay. Should I say something?
Yeah, please give your comment on these developments. How do you view this escalation once again, and where does this stop?
So ceasefire hasn't started indeed because reality is important. So in the officially, of course, a peace deal has signed, but this is not the meaning that just end this conflict. This explosion or fighting proved it. So that's why the real ceasefire, real peace deal need to start. in this case, more pressure from the President Trump administration, and more pressure or more will of the conflict actors to cooperate with this peace deal. These are the needed. Without this, the battle will continue, and the peace deal is just a paper.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nagao, for your comment there. I'd leave it at that for now and move on, viewers. Now, the United States and Rwanda have also signed a $228 million deal in the health sector. This is the second under the Trump administration's America First global health strategy. The agreement, announced Friday, aims to save lives, strengthen Rwanda's health system, and build greater self-reliance. Under the deal, the U.S. will provide up to $158 million to combat HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other infectious diseases, while boosting defense and disease surveillance and outbreak response. Rwanda will contribute $70 million of its own funds, gradually assuming greater financial responsibility as U.S. support is reduced over time. The agreement also builds on Rwanda's innovative use of zipline drones to deliver life-saving medical supplies to remote areas. Rwanda's Foreign Minister Oliver called the pact a step toward creating a self-reliant, adaptive, and technology-enabled health system. The announcement comes a day after U.S. broke a deal aimed at ending the conflict in Eastern DRC was failed. And now we request Mr. Nagao to join us once again into the discussion here. Mr. Nagao, now Trump has offered a grant to fight these diseases, but crucial here will be how the funds are used in the country.
In the feature of the diplomacy of the Trump administration is they love the bilateral negotiation to deal, and any issue could be the card of the negotiation. So that's why this is a health issue. But health issue, in the past, this is a USA take responsibility, and some things more maintaining the support is also happen. But now this is very important as a card in the deal. So that's why Rwanda cooperate with U.S. mediation to ceasefire in the battle in Congo. In this case, of course, as a response, the Trump administration can support health-related issue in Rwanda, but that could happen. This is the style. Because the effective use of resources is matter in the United States, so just support is not support. Support should be the America's interest and contributing America's interest, so benefit to America is very important. So that's why health issue or not is not a matter. Any cards U.S. will use to deal with it. In this case, Rwanda's cooperation in the ceasefire is very good attitude. That's why the Rwanda got the health support from the United States. I think that is the current situation, I think.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Nagao, for joining us here at NewsX World and giving your perspective there. And with that, viewers, we shift on to news from Kenya, where Kenyan authorities have released a parliamentary report that accuses the British troops training unit in Kenya known as the BATUK or BATUK of decades-long human rights violations and environmental damage. The inquiry by Kenya's Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee documents repeated cases of sexual abuse by British soldiers, including rape and assault, with allegations that victims were left unsupported and children fathered by soldiers abandoned. One of the most serious cases referenced is the 2012 death of a young Kenyan woman whose body was found in a hotel septic tank, a case long linked by locals to the BATUK personnel. Now, lawmakers also accused the unit of environmental destruction, citing unexploded ordnance left behind, poor waste disposal, and military debris that allegedly caused injuries, deaths, and long-term land degradation. Now, this report describes BATUK's presence as resembling an occupying force rather than a defense partner, calling for tougher oversight, legal accountability, and compensation mechanisms for victims. The UK government said it regrets the findings and is open to investigating new allegations once evidence is formally presented. The report has intensified debate in Kenya over foreign military presence as affected communities push for justice, transparency, and long overdue reforms. Dominic Kirill, who's a journalist from Nairobi, now joins us in the discussion here. Dominic, I thank you for speaking to us here at NewsX World. Now, of course, an apology has come from Britain, but isn't it too little too late?
No, the apology that was issued by King Charles when he came to Kenya and also by the British government it comes a little too late, of course, because given the number of atrocities committed by the BATUK for the past 60 years, as it were, is a long overdue, because most of these allegations have gone unnoticed in most cases, I would say, and the government of Britain has done very little to actually acknowledge these atrocities against humanities and also the environmental atrocities that they have committed where they are training in northern Kenya. And it would be said that right now is when a wake-up call has been made by the government, the parliament of Kenya, and this has been triggered by the killing of Wanjiru, the lady who was killed in 2012. And after several attempts by the government of Kenya to do to actually they also were able to name the soldier, and another progress has been now taken by the.
All right, viewers, we are facing some technical glitch in the audio of Dominic, who's a journalist from Nairobi, giving us details of the present situation there and as far as the case is concerned. But what we can tell you here for now is that the report that has been released by the Kenyan authorities is accusing the British Army's training unit in the country, which was BATUK, of serious human rights violations, and these include sexual abuse allegations, allegations of environmental damage, and various kinds of misconduct. Now, while we try to reestablish that connection with my guest there, I'd also like to tell you, viewers, that the investigation was conducted by Defense Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee, documented repeated incidents of sexual abuse, including rape and assault, which was often followed by abandonment of the children that were fathered by the troops. Some of the cases cited include the 2012 death of a young Kenyan woman whose body was found in a septic tank at a hotel. And we apologize for that technical glitch, but for now we have to move on from here, viewers. Now, a witness in a high-profile inquiry into crime and corruption in South Africa's justice system has been gunned down just weeks after implicating a municipal police chief. The Judicial Commission, led by former Constitutional Court judge, was set up by President Cyril Ramaphosa to probe explosive allegations by a senior police officer linking politicians to criminal gangs. The panel began public hearings in mid-September, and the witness had delivered his evidence behind closed doors last month. Witness testified in November that suspended Police Department Deputy Chief Julius Makhwanazi had ordered him to dispose of the body of a suspect who died in police custody in 2022. And moving on, Amnesty International has urged Burkina Faso's military junta to scrap its plan to reinstate the death penalty 7 years after its abolition. The junta's Council of Ministers adopted a draft law aimed at reinstating the punishment for crimes including high treason, terrorism, and espionage. In response, Amnesty's regional director, Marshal Siviodo, said that the military must immediately halt its plans regardless of the nature of the offences or crimes committed. He also noted that the proposal, if approved, would set Burkina Faso against the goal of abolition enshrined in international law. And viewers, let's move on to tell you some news from Nigeria. Somalia Levinus is anxiously waiting for the news of his 5-year-old son, who was taken during a mass abduction from St. Mary's Catholic Boarding School in Papiri in the Niger state. Gunmen seized more than 300 school children 2 weeks ago, sparking nationwide alarm. Nigerian authorities say they have located the group and are negotiating the release of the 265 children who are still held, according to school officials. Levinus describes the emotional strain of uncertainty and the constant fear for his child's safety. Listen in.
In the initial stage, when it happened, day 1, day 2, it wasn't easy, to be honest. Day 3, and we don't see any serious commitment from the government coming. We felt we've not been recognized that something happened in our own area, something happened with us. If it is death, you understand that this person has passed on. You bury the person. You understand this one is gone. Now you don't know what the poor child is passing through. Has she eaten? Has he eaten? No. Has he taken his baths? And the child is in medication. As a father, you have to be strong. Even though you felt tears will come, you have to, hide yourself to control some other things,
And that's a wrap on Africa Brief. But do stay tuned to NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.